to Vikings Rant. This is Nathan.
And I'm Dirk.
And we are very excited to be bringing you this program here tonight. We are doing this live, as always, and it will be dropped on YouTube later, as always.
Yes, we're bringing back the Vikings Rant podcast. We started this last season. We won basically every game except for clearly the NFC Championship and Carolina. Actually, the weird part is we started right after a loss, and we only lost twice the rest of the year.
Which is, as Dirk says, very weird. And I know a lot of you are wondering, where have you guys been all offseason?
Working.
Great question. Not a great answer, which was pretty much pure and utter laziness and lack of desire.
Yeah, I mean, the offseason's hard. There's not a ton of news all the time. You can't really, it's hard to find things to talk about, so you got to kind of let everything happen. And now we get to look back at this offseason, kind of what happened over the summer, and also we're previewing the upcoming season for the Vikings as well, looking at the NFC North and the rest of the NFL briefly.
And you know what, Dirk? You know what time it is? That's right, Dirk. It is time for Vikings football. That little clip provided by the Minnesota Vikings to get us ramped up for the season. And Dirk, today was a big day. We were recording this on Saturday. Today was 53-man roster cut day for all of the teams across the league, Dirk.
Yeah, Nathan, and there were some surprises in the Vikings, some sad surprises as well, in terms of what was the final roster, including a longtime veteran, Brian Robinson, defensive end for 11 seasons, getting cut. This came after an offseason which Brian Robinson had taken a pay cut, and it was almost sure thing, thinking that he was going to be the number 3 defensive end behind Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter, kind of like he was last year, but this was not the case, Nathan.
Yeah, the Vikings decided to go for youth here, keeping instead the talents of Tayshaun Bauer and also Stephen Weatherly. Yeah, sorry, I had a mental breakdown there.
Yeah, Tayshaun Bauer and Stephen Weatherly will now obviously be the second string defensive line behind Hunter and Griffin. Hunter, of course, signing the big contract extension this offseason, as well as Stephon Diggs. But, Nathan, are you surprised by this move? Because you didn't seem as surprised earlier as I thought this was.
I'm not quite surprised, I think, as you are. What I do think is interesting is the Vikings talked a lot about this offseason wanting to develop a rotation, and Brian Robinson was one of those guys who was actually part of the little rotation that they did have before, which was switching Brian Robinson in once in a while to keep guys fresh. And so getting rid of Brian Robinson means that these young guys, Tayshaun Bauer and Stephen Weatherly, are going to get more of a chance to get on the field and really make their presence felt this season.
Yeah, and Nathan, that is true. Let's look at the defensive linemen on the 53-man roster. We kept 4 defensive ends, Bauer, Griffin, Hunter, Weatherly, and we kept 5 defensive tackles. Jalen Holmes, Jaleel Johnson, Linval Joseph, David Perry, and Sheldon Richardson. So
we're keeping a lot more talent in the middle, and Jalen Holmes is a guy who we drafted in the 4th round this year, who they're hoping they can develop into a starting defensive tackle, maybe in place of Sheldon Richardson if they can't sign him to this deal this offseason.
That would most likely be the case. But yeah, Robinson's always been he's been a big player on the defense for years, Nathan. He's been around with the team since even he was on that 2009 team with Brett Favre. It was Brian Robinson, Ray Edwards. Yeah, let's say Ray Edwards is still on the team. Ray Edwards and Jared Allen. And then, he's moved into the 2000s even during years the Vikings were bad and stayed with them up till now. So it is kind of it's also a big personality in the locker room. So
what I think is happening here is the Vikings are thinking, we need to get rid of everyone who was a part of the 2009 team. Clearly they were cursed, and that's why we couldn't get past the NFC Championship game last year. Now that Brian Robinson's gone, we should have No problem.
So everything is currently being blamed on Brian Robinson.
That is a fact.
That's a bold take.
Thank you.
Very bold, hot take. Let's look at some other interesting roster moves from throughout the day here. As I go back.
One interesting one, Kendall Wright, who we were excited about going into this offseason. The Vikings were able to sign him from the Bears. He was, of course, the Bears' leading receiver last year. So we think, well, that's exciting. Even if he's number 4, I mean, good to have someone with talent. But he was, in fact, cut today. Many people suspecting because of how little he was able to contribute on special teams.
Yeah, and in the preseason he wasn't as great either. In the other case, also Laquan Treadwell, who will be the number 3 wide receiver behind Diggs and Thielen going into the season. Treadwell had a pretty good training camp, offseason overall, and also had a good preseason too. Same could be said about Brandon Zylstra, who made the final roster, and then Stacey Coley's that other wide receiver kept on the squad.
And Laquan Treadwell, you can say, is definitely in a place now where the pressure is on for him. He is going to have to perform this season, and that's simply how it's going to have to be because we have no other options now. We don't want Brandon Zylstra catching a ton of balls. He's just not quite ready yet. And we don't want Stacey Coley really doing much either, although I think he might be able to someday.
Yeah, Stacey Coley is probably, I'd say Stacey Coley's ahead of Brandon Zylstra on the depth chart right now, but again, it's going to be Treadwell, Rudolph, Diggs, Thielen, and then you're going to have a combination of Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray out of the backfield along with David Morgan. So Coley's going to be down there. He'll be out in a lot of spreads, I think, spread formations. But again, Treadwell, he did a good job during the preseason. Also, in that game against Seattle, which was where most of the first team starters played, he had a couple nice big catches and runs. He was getting open, getting that separation that he hasn't gotten in recent years. Also making a lot of runs after the catch. I'm very excited for Laquan Treadwell. I mean, I would put him as one of my sleepers for fantasy wire pickup. Obviously, he's not on a team right now in the most case, but you could see, I think he's got the potential to have a Sidney Rice type year where it's like a once or twice in a lifetime career, and Laquan Treadwell will be that guy you're looking for week 5 when it starts the bye weeks and you're looking for a receiver to pick up.
Interesting fantasy take there, Dirk. And another thing that you can take from this is that they definitely do have confidence in Brandon Zylstra and Stacey Coley to, put forth numbers if needed on this team, because we know in the past Stephon Diggs has gotten hurt frequently, which means these two guys are going to have to step up if that happens.
Yeah, and Treadwell has done a decent job stepping up, especially against Green Bay last year in that game at US Bank. He did a good job stepping up for Stephon Diggs when he was injured in that game. But, yeah, you're right. I think Coley's next guy up. I think Brandon Zylstra had a good preseason, including that probably not the reason he's on the roster in the end, but, he had that touchdown pass the other night in that final preseason game against the Tennessee Titans. Zylstra being on the roster is interesting. The one I was surprised, I thought Chad Beebe had an outside shot at making the roster because Chad Beebe had a very good preseason. Jake Wendicke got cut earlier this week. Wasn't that surprised at it, but I definitely thought Beebe had a shot, so I was kind of sad to see him go, but I wasn't overly surprised he got cut in the end.
I think Chad Beebe is one of those guys where they see him maybe being good in the future, but right now they knew he was a pretty solid lock to get on the practice squad. Probably not a lot of people wanting to take him, and he probably doesn't want to go. So it would make sense that they want him, to stick around on the team, but maybe not contribute in a big way yet.
Yeah, that would make sense there. He's probably going to stay on the practice squad. Elsewhere, Terrence Newman retires today. Terrence Newman retires after a long career. We thought he was going to play one more year, didn't. He's joining the Vikings coaching staff, apparently, and that means on the roster is going to be Rhodes, Waynes, obviously, then Mike Hughes, Mackenzie Alexander, you have to think are going to be those nickel cornerbacks, and you're going to see a little bit more Holton Hill, who a lot of people have raved about during the offseason and after he was drafted. Went undrafted even and was signed by us. Guys think Holton Hill's going to see the field some, but Newman retires after a long career that includes some good stints with the Vikings, but before that, the Cowboys and the Bengals.
And I definitely still feel very, very good about our cornerback group. I think this probably means we will not be trading, say, a Trey Waynes or a Mackenzie Alexander, as has been the rumor going around.
Right.
I think that Terrence Newman retiring means that probably won't be happening. Though maybe we'll play George Aloka at cornerback and we'll trade him anyways.
Yeah, George Aloka's interesting because George Aloka can play a lot of places. I think he can play the cornerback spot for you a bit. I think he's mostly going to play safety and hybrid linebacker. A lot of teams in the NFL nowadays are going hybrid with some more spread sets, some more of a passing league, shotgun, not under center any more than it used to be. I think a lot of teams, that's a lot of teams have gone to hybrid linebackers. The Arizona Cardinals in the recent years, have had success going with that hybrid linebacker scheme, kind of. The Los Angeles Rams have some here too as well. So I think the Vikings might try some of those sets this year. Mike Zimmer, defensive coach, he knows how to work the system, and I think he's trying to look for some new wrinkles on what already is a top 3 defense in the NFL.
Yeah, very, very exciting, I think, for our defense this year. They have the potential to be even better than last year with the holes that they have filled in. Not only will Trey Waynes take another step forward this year, I guarantee, but also I think Mackenzie Alexander will show tremendous development in the slot, and I think that our defensive line has the potential to be even more potent.
Yeah, Nathan, so that's kind of the big roster moves today, the end of the preseason. Let's look at the back of the rest of the preseason. The Vikings went 3-1. Obviously, preseason records don't matter, but we're just going to throw it out there.
I don't know, Dirk. 3-1 makes me think Super Bowl in 1.
Okay, that's another hot take by you. Another hot take by Nathan. So, I mean, again, kind of, if you look at it, I mean, the Vikings, the first team offense had a very good drive against Denver. Jacksonville was awful. Don't even get me started on that one. And then, obviously, the Tennessee game we're not going to focus on, but Seattle even. Everyone looked pretty good for the most part, with the exception of Daniel Carlson, who shanked 2 field goals.
We don't need to talk about
He did
that.
make 2 field goals and an extra point the other night against Tennessee. So this is going to be back and forth. If there's one thing I am going to rant about this season on Vikings Rant podcast, it's going to be the kicking game, and you know it already. I'm just warning everyone who's listening right now.
Dirk, you don't know that, though. He could be perfect, although we hope not completely perfect, as we do not want another Gary Anderson.
Yeah, Gary Anderson, wherever you are, I'm not going to say it. We're on air.
Yes, and very, very exciting, I think, for Daniel Carlson to get this opportunity to be an NFL kicker. I know I drafted him in all of my fantasy leagues because he's just going to be great.
Yeah, Nathan picked him in the last round last night, and I was curious about what that decision, but, you know, we're going to figure it out. But, yeah, Carlson, but again, the Vikings looked pretty good. I thought Cousins obviously looked good on that first drive against Denver. He looked pretty good in the third game. The second game we won't talk about. Jacksonville, that was with like half a second string offensive line. That was literally with like 4 starters out, I believe. The offensive line, we'll talk about them later here in our offensive preview. But again, Cousins, I thought for the most part looked pretty good. And right now I'd say him and Stephon Diggs have a lot better connection, chemistry, whatever you want to call it, than he does with Adam Thielen right now, although the Adam Thielen one doesn't seem to be bad either.
I'm really not worried about Adam Thielen. He's the type of guy who is going to get his volume. That's what Adam Thielen does. He's where he needs to be when he needs to be. Adam Thielen is just solid in my opinion, even though I could be wrong.
Yeah, you could be wrong, but I think Adam Thielen is pretty good. We're going to do fine. We didn't see much of Dalvin Cook. We saw 2 carries for like a yard in this preseason.
Although I am excited for Dalvin Cook.
Oh, we're very excited for Dalvin Cook. Very excited for Dalvin Cook. Latavius Murray looked good throughout the preseason, I thought. That offensive line struggled. Run blocking, not so much. Now they did a better job there, but pass blocking, I thought that offensive line really struggled at times, especially against Seattle when they were getting thrown blitzes at them every other play.
Although, I think also, those of you who did not know, we traded a 7th-round pick for a center/guard from the New York Giants by the name of Brett Jones, who will, without a doubt, be one of our starting offensive linemen, I can almost guarantee you. And he will probably end up starting at left guard, which will move our starting offensive line to, as of right now, Riley Reif, Brett Jones, Pat Elflein, Mike Rimmers, and Rashad Hill.
Yeah, and Brett Jones, he's been a backup most of his career. He's played some Canadian football. He started 14 games for the New York Giants last season at center. He's played some left guard before in his career, too. I mean, he's not an overwhelmingly good offensive lineman, but I think if you're going to compare him to Tom Compton and Danny Isidora, who I think Danny Isidora is going to be good one day, but is still developing, I think Jones was the way to go here. And I think Jones, he'll get the start center, I think, against San Francisco. Elflein, not on the pup. That's good news for the Vikings. But I don't think he's ready week 1. I think Elflein gets that week 2 nod against Green Bay, if I had to give my own opinion on that. But I think, yeah, you're right. After that, Jones to left guard. I think Elflein to center. I like that line better than a line with Tom Compton starting right now, of course.
I am still nervous about our offensive line, but I am not freaking out about our offensive line. I think they have the potential to be solid this year. I like the Brett Jones addition. I think he can be as good, if not better, than Nick Easton was last year at left guard. Yeah, I think he could be as good, if not better, than Nick Easton. certainly a comparable replacement. And I'll tell you one other thing I'm excited for. I think by midseason, we will be looking at a huge competition between Rashad Hill and rookie Brian O'Neill.
Yeah, Brian O'Neill's looked pretty good at times this preseason. Against Seattle, I think he did well. Against Tennessee and also the Denver teams. I think, and in practice too. Brian O'Neill's looked well this training camp, and I think they're going to give him a couple weeks. Rashad Hill is the starter right now for sure, but don't be surprised if by midseason Brian O'Neill is suddenly in the starting lineup. And I also don't think I'd be super surprised even if Brett Jones struggles. If Brett Jones struggles, Danny Isidora, I think, should be the guy there at guard. So I think these are two young guys, Isidora and O'Neal, to watch to see if they can crack that starting lineup eventually in the season. Hopefully, of course, everything goes well. And we don't have to do that. But if they do, I mean, I think those are two guys to watch.
And I certainly think they are very solid backups for us, and people that if they came into the game, I would not be terribly nervous.
Yeah. No, let's look at the rest of the offense here quickly. Looking at Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. We have
Cousins. Yes.
Yes, it's Kirk Cousins finally. We have a good quarterback here for the first time. Okay, Case Keenum was good for one season.
Okay,
Teddy Bridgewater was good for one season. But
we're not having this debate again.
We haven't had a Pro Bowl level quarterback since Brett Favre. And I think that I don't want to remind about Brett Favre. I get
That's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, is this team going to hit its stride right away? Because I can definitely see this team starting off like 2-2 or something like that. People think they're struggling and then rattling off 8 wins just because it'll take a little bit of time for them to like get still together and get on the same page. Do you see that?
What was the question?
Do you see them like struggling early on a little bit, maybe going like 2-2 or something, and then they like rattle off 8 straight wins? Like they take a little while to get on the same page. And
seeing as my final record prediction for the Vikings this season is 14-2, no, I do not see them going 2-2 in the beginning.
Interesting. I mean, I could see it. I could also see. I personally think they'll beat San Francisco, Buffalo, and I think they'll win. They should win 1 or 2 of those Philly, Los Angeles, Green Bay games they got early in the season. I don't expect them to win all 3. They win all 3, and they beat San Francisco and Buffalo. First of all, we're 5-0, and Nathan and I do not want to be 5-0 again.
We do not want to be 5-0
because the last time we were 5-0, we were all thinking about Super Bowl, and then we finished like 8-8.
Although I don't want to look to the past too much and like let it predict the future because it doesn't. But let's be honest, last preseason we were worried about this team, without a doubt. And then Sam Bradford came out week 1 and lit up the New Orleans Saints. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's going to happen again. We can start previewing the San Francisco 49ers as this game does happen next Sunday, correct, Dirk?
That's true. We can preview that at the end of this. So, yeah, overall in the Vikings offense, I think you might see a couple growing pains, but most of the time I think you'll see it'll be fine this season. Let's look at one more player again. One more player here on the offense. Dalvin Cook coming back from injury. Should we expect him to be that same Dalvin Cook that...
Yes, we should, Dirk.
I mean, I hope he is. I obviously hope he is. Every Viking fan out there hopes he is, but it is a torn ACL still. He's a young guy, which is good. It's better, rather, I think you get that injury young than old, but still, it's something to watch. I mean, he looked okay. I think it was more of an offensive line problem on the couple carries he had versus Seattle, but if he doesn't have to be the over 1,500-yard guy. He can just be a 1,200-yard guy, and this offense will be fine now, I think, with the passing attack we have with Kirk Cousins.
I definitely think that Dalvin Cook is set up to have not only a great season, but a season that will maybe make him the rushing champion this year, despite the fact that he's sharing carries with Latavius Murray. I think Dalvin Cook is, to be quite frank, going to be explosive.
Yeah, I think Dalvin Cook is going to be pretty good this season. I think he's going to just get that over 1,000 yards pace that he was on pace for last season before he tore his ACL, as we all know. Sad. And
let's go for no season-ending injuries this year.
And if the Detroit Lions guy injures him again and falls on him after he's clearly been hurt again, and we have a phone call. Oh my goodness!
This is our own Isaac Logeman calling in to give his nice words with Isaac. Dirk, how would you like to answer the phone?
I will like to answer the phone, and Nathan will keep you talking at this point.
All right, one other big thing that's coming to the NFC, well, and more specifically to the NFC North, further weakening the AFC, is Khalil Mack. Well, how do I feel about that? I think...
Tell him to call it.
that it is an interesting move by the Chicago Bears. Certainly one that, on principle, looks like it might be good, and on paper looks like it might be good. Khalil Mack has had many, many good seasons. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how this goes for the Bears, because they traded 2 first-round picks. And so when you trade the 2 first-round picks, then, you know, you're putting in a significant investment.
Hey, hold on.
Looks like we did get Isaac on the phone. This is exciting.
Here.
Dirk is trying to figure out how to do it. But back on Khalil Mack.
Okay,
You're trading 2 first-round picks, so what do I think about that?
Let's turn Isaac on and turn off your thing. Let's see.
We're going to test Isaac here.
Isaac, start talking.
Hello, everyone.
All right, we did it. You're on.
All right, we can hear Isaac. Isaac, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. A little faint, but I can hear you loud and clear.
All right.
I guess that was kind of contradicting, but it's more faint than I can hear you, but I can hear you.
All right, well, with Isaac on, I think we know what time it is.
Well, yes, that is the time it would seem, and I am just so excited for this next year of the Vikings Rant podcasting to come on, particularly for Isaac's nice words with Isaac, but also throughout. And I just want to say it's great to hear you ranting again, Nathan. You know, the Viking season really brings out the best in you, so thanks for being back. Dirk, let's do this thing. So, I've been thinking long and hard about my nice words segment, and obviously we've been gone for, you know, a good 7 months here or something like that. And there's so much we could talk about. I mean, we have big splashy signings, which we may have talked about with Kirk Cousins. We have lots of roster moves throughout, picking up other free agents, 4 preseason games. But I decided I wanted to key in on a role on our team that seems pretty well set, and that's the wide receiver role. And while this may be shocking, because as those who have listened to our podcast before might know, Nathan loves this person way more than I do, I'd like to give some nice words out to Laquan Treadwell. You know, while we've never seen the explosiveness we might have hoped from him when we drafted him so early a few years ago, I was excited to see some of the catches he made this preseason and the action he was giving. And I got to give him credit for, you know, just keep sticking with it and doing his best to be a contributing member to this team. And I think he has potential to be a very solid third option to Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs this year. And I'm excited to see him come out in that role. So, while he's not my favorite player on the team by any means, I think he has the potential to really come out this year and show us that he may have been worth the first-round pick that we decided to give him, even though he certainly has not showed lately. And I also want to talk about one other receiver, and it's a little sad on this day, especially because we had cuts, and this person was cut. But, man, I loved watching Chad Beebe in this preseason. He was just an electrifying player. Obviously, he was playing more against second-string and third-string players throughout the preseason. But, boy, did he have some exciting catches, including that touchdown grab in the end of the game against Tennessee last week. And he just had a really big connection with Kyle Sloter. And I hope that, for his sake, he finds his way onto some squad, maybe a practice squad, or a 53-man roster around the league, and that he finds some success. And hopefully we eventually can find the next Adam Thielen, and potentially him or Brandon Zylstra, who made the team. So looking forward to this wide receiver group as is one of our strong points coming in, but I definitely have some nice words for that whole core.
Yes, and Isaac, you would be happy to know that Chad Beebe is getting several looks from the Minnesota Vikings practice squad. They would like to sign him and hopefully still keep him on the team and around the team.
Well, as I figured, I think that's the right move. He definitely was a player that showed potential, so we'd be, frankly, stupid to not consider him as an option going forward for potential future production. So that would be exciting. We'll see you, in the next few days as those final decisions come out for practice squad and, roster moves. And it's fun to see this NFL season come to fruition because, boy, has it been a long offseason.
Yes, it has.
Life is way worse without the NFL.
And we are all very excited for NFL football to start again. Good points, though, on Laquan Treadwell. We are very excited. And as I've always said, it is time for Laquan to catch a touchdown and have a big game.
It's inevitable. It's got to happen, and I think it will. But thanks for having me on. I think that's it for my time this week.
Isaac, we do have one question before you go.
Oh, yes.
All right, Khalil Mack, what do you think of the trade for the Bears?
You know, I don't have a ton of thoughts. Frankly, I always have a saying with friends of mine or people I know, and them being fans of different teams in the NFC North. If they're a Packers fan, I would say something along the lines of, that's a terrible decision. I think you are cheering on a bad team full of bad people. And then some people say they're Bears fans, and I often say I feel bad for you. And I think I still feel that way. I don't think the Bears are going to be a legitimate threat this year. I think they make, hover around 500. So I don't think this Khalil Mack trade currently in the moment is going to affect the Vikings so much, which is obviously the team that I root for. However, I think it's an exciting move for their organization, and it could do well. But my biggest thought with this signing is that it is absolutely wild, the amount of money that goes to these players. And it's so funny for me to see that every single person who signs a deal seems to break the previous deal. I mean, a few months ago when we signed Kirk Cousins, we signed him to that $84 million 3-year contract, fully guaranteed. And it was absurd. Not absurd, but it was very high, and people were saying, wow, he's the highest paid player in the NFL. And that seems like an afterthought now. I mean, we have Aaron Rodgers getting paid, crazy amounts of money, and then Aaron Donald the other day gets an amazing salary, which people say, oh, it's the largest salary ever to a defensive player in the NFL. And then today, Khalil Mack just blows out of the water. So, I just find it funny that, all this money goes to these players, and we make a big deal out of salaries. But to me, I think it's all about the market, and that's where the market was going to pay a player like that who can rush the quarterback so well. So, good for the Bears. I think it's a good move. I don't really think it was a great move for the Oakland Raiders to not get that settled. I don't know what Gruden was thinking, but, the Oakland Raiders are an afterthought now after a few years ago looking so good. So, that's about my thoughts, and we'll see how it plays out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it was a very interesting move, in my opinion, and I do agree with you on those salary points that you made. It is very interesting to see the salaries continue to be blown out of the water by so much money. And these deals that we had with, say, Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs that looked like big deals earlier this offseason now look relatively, in comparison, like we got good deals.
Yeah, OBJ, another big deal. I mean, they just keep coming.
All right, thank you for coming on tonight, Isaac. Have a lovely evening, and we will, of course, see you for Nice Words with Isaac next week.
Yes, Isaac, have fun up in the Roch. I call it the Roch, Rochester.
All right, now moving on with the show, we will look ahead to the San Francisco 49ers, which is the game that we are playing next week, Dirk.
Looking at the game against San Francisco, we have the interesting news, of course, Jerick McKinnon, torn ACL, if you've been listening to us for the past...
Now, Dirk, that is a vicious rumor. We don't know that's real yet.
Nathan, that's been on like 3 articles I've found.
Articles don't always tell the truth.
Remember
they said Terrence Newman retired today, and we all know he's still playing.
Nathan, that's actually not true.
Never mind, I guess articles are real.
But let's see. If McKinnon plays, I think that's a new wrinkle. I don't really think they have a good running back depth behind McKinnon. They haven't lost yet, technically, in the Jimmy Garoppolo era with Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, a wonderful offensive coach. If you don't remember, he was the offensive coordinator for that Falcons offense that was super dynamic and was up 25 points in the middle of the third quarter in the Super Bowl and blew it. Let's not talk about that one. So
I don't know. I'm a Patriots fan now after watching that.
Nathan, we were both sitting there grimacing with like angry faces on the entire second half.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I hate the Patriots. Anyway, so we're playing them. Their defense is pretty solid up front. They got Aaron Lynch. Let me go look up their roster actually right here because they got Richard Sherman now in the secondary. So it's going to be interesting to see if
Richard Sherman.
Do you think Sherman's just washed up at this point, or do you think Sherman's still got something in the tank?
I could not be less nervous about this game against the San Francisco 49ers.
Really?
Who are, in my opinion, the second or third most overhyped team this offseason.
I was going to say, Nathan, because a lot of people are thinking San Francisco could challenge for a wild card spot this year in the NFC.
Once again, why they are overhyped. If I were to give my order, it would be San Francisco 49ers, number 3, Los Angeles Rams, number 2, and number 1, the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, Bears definitely didn't make themselves the most overhyped team. in the league. Let's look there. DeForest Buckner on the offensive line, Eric Armstead, they're good up front. Besides Malcolm Smith, I don't see much there in the linebacking core. It's still a defense that's building. It's still an offense that's building even. Jimmy Garoppolo still a work in progress at the quarterback position. And Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin are not a wide receiving core that stands out to you.
Pierre Garçon had one good season. That was only because his quarterback was so spectacular. His quarterback, of course, being Kirk Cousins.
That is a good point, Nathan. That is a very good point. He's also good in Indianapolis because his quarterback was Peyton Manning.
But less good, because Peyton Manning is not as good as Kirk Cousins.
This is a very bold take by you again.
Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, I think the Vikings, if this was in San Francisco, I think it'd be on an upset alert. But it's not. It's in Minneapolis. And I just don't see... Jimmy Garoppolo has not played yet in an environment like the U.S. Bank Stadium. That is very noisy, very loud, and very raucous. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a lot of... The crowd behind Kirk Cousins in Game 1 is going to be big because he's going to have momentum with him on his side. The crowd's going to be silent for him. He's going to hear him. And for a Vikings offense that is still working in progress to get to that 100% mark in terms of being onto it, having a quiet crowd during those plays for you is going to be big. So I think the Vikings... I think they rattle Garoppolo early. And I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's something along the lines of Vikings 27, 49ers 17, if I had to predict that in the end. I think they're going to see some offensive success, but for the most part, I think you're going to see the Vikings defense of last year, especially if Jerick McKinnon can't play, because Jerick McKinnon is an X factor, both catching the ball out of the backfield and using that speed to run between the tackles. And if he's not playing, then you really don't have to worry about that 49er run game.
And to pound that into the ground even more, let me just say how happy I will be to hand Jimmy Garoppolo his first NFL loss.
Yeah, I think it's going to be his first NFL loss. I'm confident. I'm a little nervous, of course. I want to see how that offensive line holds up against what is a good San Francisco front four, but I am fairly confident. I think the offense will get it done. I think Kirk will have a good debut. Not a great debut, but a good debut. A couple touchdown passes in there, about 250, 300 yards. I think it'll be a good debut for Kirk.
All right, Dirk, we have a lot of predictions coming up right now.
We haven't talked about the defense yet either.
Well, defense is kind of implied, Dirk, and we did talk a little bit about it. So let's move on to predictions. How about that?
Yeah, let's move on to our NFL predictions. Let's look at the rest of the NFC North. Let's see what we think about the NFC North here. Let's predict the Vikings record first, actually, since they're our favorite.
Vikings record first. I've already given my prediction.
14-2, right?
14-2. I think one of the losses will come to the Eagles or the Rams on the road. As much as I hate to see it, I think one of the losses will come to them, and I think the other one will be to the Patriots.
I think 12-4.
Wow.
So it's about last season. I think 12-4, something like a 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. But I think, and I interviewed Jim Suhan of the Star Tribune a couple weeks ago on radio back in Northfield, and I think he was right. I think the regular season record might not be 13-3 again, but this team is better playoff built. The quarterback is more of a veteran. A lot of the team now has that playoff experience, playing last year's game against the New Orleans Saints and playing in that NFC title game. So I think he's correct on it might not be as good of a regular season team. It might be 12-4. It could also be 11-5. But I think it's a better playoff team with that experience and with the better quarterback play as well.
I think that is a very good point.
Yeah, Jim Suhan's a smart man.
Dirk, if you had to predict who was in the Super Bowl right now, who would it be?
If I had to predict, let's go through division by division and let's get to the Super Bowl at the end. So let's look at the NFC North.
Oh, wow. This is really intense.
Let's look at the NFC North. Let's go like a rapid fire here. Rapid fire. Let's look at the NFC North. Let's go. I'm going to go Vikings 12-4. I'm going to put the Packers at 10-6. I think Aaron Rodgers being back obviously gets you to double-digit wins. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think that's going to help a lot. I think you've improved some on defense. Josh Jackson and Jair Alexander are not going to be there right away, though. But it's going to be an upgraded corner. Wilkerson, defensive end. Jimmy Graham at the tight end spot. It's going to be a big red zone target. I'm going to say 10-6, and they make the playoffs. Bears, I'm going to put the Bears at 7-9. I'm going to put the Bears at 7-9.
Are you going down each division and giving their records?
Yeah, I'm going to put the Bears at 7-9.
Wow.
I don't think Matt gets them to the playoffs yet. I think next year they're a playoff team, and I think Detroit's going to be 6-10. They don't have anyone but Stafford.
Detroit will not win a game. I'm calling it right now.
They have one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Who?
Detroit.
They will not win a game. Dirk, you will owe me money at the end of the season.
You think they're not going to win a game? They have Matthew Stafford.
0-16 the next Cleveland Browns.
Wow. Okay.
All right, so finally moving on, we're going to do some score predictions for the San Francisco 49ers game.
I kind of gave mine already, 27-17 Vikings.
Well, Dirk, I guess I will give mine. I think the offense will put up 40 points on the board for the first time in almost 2 years, if maybe not 3 years. And I think the score will be 42-10.
42. Wow, that's a blowout. But when Nathan goes blowouts, normally it works.
All right, Dirk, bold prediction for the game.
Bold prediction for the game. Bold prediction. I'm going to say Laquan Treadwell finally catches a touchdown.
Wow, that is bold. Really bold. My bold prediction.
What is it?
Oh, man. I don't know. There's so many good ones I could do. How about this? Stephen Weatherly records his first sack in an NFL game.
His first what?
His first sack in an NFL game.
Okay. That'd be also an interesting one.
As does Jaleel Johnson.
Oh, that is bold. That's very bold. So that's our bold predictions there for the Vikings. Again, we both see them winning week 1 here against San Francisco coming up. And now let's move on briefly to the rest of the NFL. Nathan, let's go with the NFC East. Just don't have to give the records, just order. Who do you see winning it 1 through 4? How do you see that division playing out?
I see Giants, Eagles, Redskins.
Wait, the Giants are going to beat the Eagles?
Cowboys.
The Giants are going to win the NFC East.
Yes.
On the basis of what?
Pat Schumer is a god.
But the team went 3-13. They have an old quarterback. I just don't see it.
Okay.
I just don't see it.
Let's keep this moving, Dirk.
I see the Eagles. I go Eagles, Giants, Cowboys. The Giants are going to finish second, but I think it's like a 500 record. Eagles, Giants, Cowboys, Redskins.
Okay.
NFC South.
This is me. I don't want to get yelled at again.
Okay. What's your What's your prediction, sir?
NFC South, I'm going to go with the Falcons, the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Panthers.
The Buccaneers are going to get second?
Yep.
They don't have Jameis for 4 games.
Okay, you're right. It's going to be the Falcons, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Buccaneers are going to come in dead last and might not win a game. But I do not think the Saints make the playoffs, and also I hate the Saints.
I think the Saints make the playoffs, but I'm going to go same predictions as you. Although I have same predictions as you 1 through 4.
Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting. We normally don't have that.
Next
is the NFC West.
All right, as much as I hate to say it, I think the Rams will get first place, though they will skid out in the playoffs. And in second is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. Third place will be the Seattle Seahawks. And fourth place, of course, the horrible Arizona Cardinals.
I'm going to go LA 1. I'm going to go San Francisco 2, Seattle 3, Arizona 4. Yeah.
Good call.
Well, who are your wild card teams out of the NFC then?
My wild card teams are the New York Giants and the Green Bay Packers.
My wild card teams are going to be the Green Bay Packers and the New Orleans Saints.
I hate the Saints.
I do too. But you know what? We beat them last year. We could just play that touchdown over and over again.
You're right.
We can play the Minneapolis Miracle over and over again throughout the entire season, even if they beat us in the regular season, we can still do, look what we did when we met in the postseason. You sucked. Anyway, your safety was awful in coverage. I don't know why Marcus Williams is still on your team. Anyway, so let's go on to the AFC. Okay, AFC East. Is there do you think the Patriots are going to win? Obviously. Duh.
Yes.
You have to. I mean, and then every other team sucks. Is that just fair to say at this point, the AFC East is the Patriots are good and every other team sucks?
Yeah, and honestly, it might be the sole reason the Patriots make the playoffs this year is because of how bad the rest of the teams
I definitely
are.
think New England's taking a drop-off. I mean, they have a revamped offensive line with a quarterback who can't run. I mean, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, but he can't run.
All right.
Mobile.
Okay, moving on from that division, Dirk.
AFC North, which I'm assuming everyone here is picking. We're both picking Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. I know what you're saying. They lost Martavis Bryant in the offseason. I don't really care.
No one's saying that.
Ben Roethlisberger is a stud. Le'Veon Bell is terrible as a person, but a decent player.
Yeah, it's true.
And Antonio Brown is Antonio Brown. They're going to make the playoffs. That is not debatable.
I think.
Yeah. going to be the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep,
I think they do a revamp. Joe Flacco is running for his life from Lamar Jackson, and as we know, Lamar Jackson is fast, so he will catch him.
You think Lamar Jackson starts by the end of the season?
Depends on if they are doing well or not. Number 3, Cincinnati Bengals will come in third. They lost Georgia Loca, so there goes their chance. And number 4, with the second 0-16 record of the year, the Cleveland Browns.
Really? Second 0-16. I think when I look at the Browns, I see a team that could win 6 games. I have the Browns third. And I have the Bengals fourth.
Okay.
So
next division, Dirk?
AFC South, which I'm very interested here because Jacksonville, a lot of people think is favorite, but there's a lot of people also are talking about Houston, talking about Tennessee. Indianapolis is Andrew Luck back. I think this is one of the more interesting divisions in football. I'm going to go Jacksonville 1, Houston 2. I'm going to go, Tennessee 3, and Indianapolis 4. But I think every team's going to be, besides Jacksonville's going to be in the 12-win column, every team's going to be around 500.
I could see it. 5, next one?
So you agree with me on the South?
Yes.
Okay. The AFC West, which I see Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders.
I agree.
All right, who are your wild cards in the AFC?
My wild cards in the AFC are going to be the Ravens and probably... Oh, my God. The AFC is so bad.
The AFC is so awful.
None of them deserve it.
No.
I don't know. I don't have another one. It's just they're going to have 5 teams.
I'm going to give mine as Houston and Kansas City.
I think the league needs to be reorganized.
It's not as bad as the NBA. If it gets to NBA level, then that's bad. But, it's pretty good at this point.
All right. Any final thoughts, Dirk, before we leave this podcast this week?
Super Bowl predictions.
Easily going to be Vikings, Patriots, Vikings run away with it.
I want to go Vikings really bad. But every time I say...
Don't say it.
I feel like I jinx it every time I predict the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl.
Just say the Vikings.
You know what? Fine. Vikings over Jaguars. There we go.
All right. Well, that's it for the Vikings Rant podcast. First week of the season coming up. Sorry that we were absent for the offseason once again. Our apologies. And look forward to more of these every week. Thank you, and signing out, this is Nathan Schulte.
And I'm Dirk Ummenhauer. We will have some great music for you here on KWLC 1240. Make sure to listen to our podcast when it goes live on YouTube.